Hello, we're nerds. Happy Sunday. It is the last day of January already. And we're here talking about The Haunting of Bly Manor. As you might know, every quarter we pick one movie to discuss, one game to play on air, and one book club pick. And this time for our movie pick, we decided to go with a whole TV series because we had just finished watching Hill House together, and so we were like,
we're the boss and no one can stop us.
Yeah. There's no rules anymore. So yeah, we're going to be talking about The Haunting of Bly Manor. There's going to be spoilers for all of The Haunting of Bly Manor and probably some Hill House spoilers as well. I don't anticipate us spoiling anything major from The Haunting of Hill House, but there probably are going to be comparisons since Hill House was the first season. So it's kind of natural to want to make comparisons there. So if you don't want any spoilers whatsoever for either of those shows, then probably come back after you've watched them. So yeah, let's kick it off with maybe just like, how much did you like the show? Let's do stars out of 5. Kelly?
4 stars. I felt pretty good about it. Like, it was slow. I definitely think it could have been shorter, but I enjoyed it. Like, I watched an episode a night for the last 9 nights, and that made it kind of a nice pace. I don't think I could have binged it, but 4 stars. I still enjoyed it.
Yeah. Aaron?
I'm gonna say 4 as well. I think it probably would have been. I think it probably would have been a 5. I know you guys probably all thought I was gonna rate it like 1 or something. I'm legitimately still mad about the ending, but I also understand that it was like good storytelling. So whatever. But yeah, 4 stars. I would have given it 5 probably if I hadn't been sort of like inevitably comparing it to Hill House, because I did like Hill House a lot better in a lot of ways. So yeah. I mean, it would be 5 out of 5 for Hill House and 4 out of 5 for Bly.
Yeah. Emma?
I'm like waffling somewhere between like 3.5 and 4 stars. Like, I keep going back and forth. I think it's like really well made. Like, all the different like elements of it are good. And there were things I liked in it, but like overall I didn't like really enjoy it.
And Griswold has 4 minutes left in the last episode, so draw this part out.
What about you, Des?
So I'm probably going to be like shocking everybody, but I actually like Bly Manor more. I think it's only because Hill House was hyped up so much. And like, I love Hill House, don't get me wrong, but there's something about like Bly, and it's always hard to do a series after there's been a great success. Like, we're all like, people are automatically going to compare it, but I thought it was different enough and like still interesting enough that I liked it. I've seen the whole thing 3 times, so I get 5.
I couldn't see myself watching it again.
Me neither. Whereas I've watched Hill House twice now and probably will again. I don't know why. I think it was like a slow, like I realized it was like a slow burn, like gothic feeling. Yeah, and I enjoyed it, but not necessarily like in a way that I want to rewatch it.
Yeah.
I've watched it twice now. I think I would also probably give it 4 stars. I don't know. I really like the ending. I have mixed feelings about the fact that it was like, you know, there's so few like canonically queer like major leads, and so I have like mixed feelings about the fact that is how it ended, but I also thought that it was a really good ending for the story they were trying to tell, and so I don't really know. I don't know. I feel really conflicted about that, but then there were a lot of other elements of the show that I felt like they were just trying to do so much. So much.
I felt like they just like, I wish they tried to do more. Hill House was so layered and there were so many mysteries, whereas Bly was like, oh, I understand pretty much everything that's happening very early on.
So I think
when I can guess what's coming, it's pretty basic.
I feel like this one, it was like they tried to do a lot of layers, and it just like felt like where like Hill House, they did a lot of layers and it all like fit together really well. I felt like Bly Manor, they tried to do a lot of layers and it felt less cohesive in a way. So it just like felt like too much to me.
I wonder if in part we're seeing like, whereas one of the stories, Hill House, was about a family, so their stories were inevitably all going to fit together. versus strangers coming together in a way,
I was
think-
gonna say exactly that,
Yeah.
like because like they're all connected, like because they're a family, so it's a little bit easier to like layer their
Tie all their
stories together.
Yeah.
Whereas like you have like I think that's one of the reasons I liked Bly. There were a couple of the story threads that I really, really, really liked. Like the Lady of the Lake episodes were hands down some of my favorite episodes of any TV. I know, so many people hated it.
I texted Megan during episode 8 and said this episode about the sisters is way too long.
Yeah.
I loved it so much.
It's funny because I feel similarly like about the whole Lady of the Lake story. I feel similarly irritated or like, I don't know, annoyed by it the same way I do with the ending, where I realize like I can recognize good story writing, but I still hate the story and I hate the character. Like
I almost would have preferred if that backstory was more spread out through the rest of it, because I felt very like, really, we're gonna end on that cliffhanger of an episode with Danny getting grabbed, and then I'm supposed to spend an hour just forgetting that that's what's happening to her. Because I do think it's a really cool ghost story.
Yeah.
Like
Me too. Like I didn't hate the character of like the Lady of the Lake. I expected her to be kind of the villain, but like she was just kind of a badass who got wronged by a lot of
who
people.
refused.
Yeah. It's a really cool, the ghost story is really cool, but I think in trying to make it its own episode, they drew it out too long. Because that was my issue.
Yeah.
I thought it was an interesting backstory for the ghost, but the episode was so long, and I felt like they just like lingered on like all the build up to it. Was like
It probably made us feel like Perdita of like, why won't she die so we can move on?
Even before she got sick, I thought it was too long.
yeah.
So like, yes, I think if they had interspersed it throughout the story, they wouldn't have had to like try and make a whole episode out of it, and it would have maybe worked better for me. But I think what Megan brought up about the romance and like the queer relationship, like not having like a happily ever after or whatever, is interesting because when you like, I thought about that at first, but then I realized when you think about all the romantic relationships in it, like it has the happiest ending out of all of them. You know? They get to be together for the longest period of time out of all the romantic couples. You know, so like actually, I guess they like got the best.
Like I said, it's very gothic, so like nobody gets a happy ending, and I get that, and I also get that like I get that it makes sense for the story they're telling. And like it's funny because when it first ended, I was like, "F this."
I remember
because it was very much the same. Like I was so delighted to get a sapphic story, not as a side character, as the main character, right? And I was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" And I think to have it end that way felt a little bit like a kick in the teeth, like. Yes, I understand good storytelling. Yes, I understand that makes sense thematically. Yes, I probably should have even seen it coming, but it still was like it sucked. It still really sucked.
I felt like I kept waiting for them to try and do something about it. Like, surely you could at least try to get her out. Like, even if you can't in the end, try. Like, we got Peter Quint out of Miles. Yeah. You got the Rebecca out of Flora, I'm assuming. Flora's not carrying Rebecca around still.
Yeah. Like, and it's funny because I knew Aaron was so mad about it. Like, I thought that, like, getting into, like, real spoiler territory now, like, I thought Danny was going to die, like, in stopping the Lady of the Lake. Like, I thought she was going to die really early on because Aaron was so mad. And then I found out, like, oh, no, they actually get to, like, live together for, like, 10 years. And I was like, okay, this is, like, a better love story than I thought it was going to be.
It's better than you think, maybe, but they're still very young when she, walks into the lake. I was like, this is not okay.
So unimportant, but they're very young. And then, like, only, like, 7 or so years in the future at the wedding, they've all aged a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. It's such an interesting, I keep waffling back and forth on like I really love the ending, but then like knowing that fridging characters is a thing, how do you like reconcile this idea?
It
didn't feel like a fridge.
It was not a fridge.
It
was not a fridge. And it's so funny because I like it was partly a joke that I was ranting to my friend about like the bury your gaze trope. I'm like, she's literally at the bottom of a lake. Like they buried her at the bottom of a lake. And then like my friend was like, oh, I was talking to my other friend who's also queer, and she's like, that's ridiculous. It's not a bury your gays trope because this and this and this. I'm like, I know, I wasn't being serious. Like, I don't really think it's the bury your gay or like fridge trope. That's because she died for a purpose. She was the main character.
Yeah.
And the whole story began and ended with her. That's not fridging. Or
they let the two lesbians go through this whole horror story, including the bad parts, and like it feels more genuine than if they'd let them get off because you have to play it nice. Of like, no, they got to go through this exactly like a straight couple would have.
Yeah, but
for better or worse,
we just don't get the amount of love stories that straight people do. So it feels a little extra, like a little salt in the wound.
This brings me though to the thing that made me the most bad about this show. So I started the first episode being like, awesome, I loved Hill House, but it was very white. And now we get like 3 characters of color, including 2 Black women. And then both of the Black women are dead.
Yeah.
I'm like really annoyed about that.
As soon as, it's so funny because as soon as Hannah was like, I knew ahead of time when she kept refusing food and stuff. And I am not someone who picks up on it. I am not. And I was like, oh, I already know what's going to happen here. Oh, she did. Yeah, exactly.
Real dead.
And then, but with the thing with the bottom of the well, I was like, oh, that's like,
that's dark.
Oh, that's dark. And like, and not necessarily like a good move for one of the only Black women in the movie. Like,
where like the other Black woman killed herself for a white man that she like was in love with. I was like, I feel like they're both terrible deaths for like the Black women in the show too.
And again, you can say like it's gothic, it's horror, but but maybe not.
I loved Hannah as a character. I thought she was so cool. She had such a good personality. I just wanted her and the cook to be happy together.
Yes.
So cute.
The whole time around the campfire, I was like, oh no, you're dead.
I know.
This is so sad.
I loved the reveal though in Hannah's episode where like she died and then met Danny. Like it was like it just happened right before the show started. It was cool.
And in the rewatch, it's like really easy. Like you catch really quickly. Like you see Danny come up to meet them, and Hannah is standing over the well. Like it perfectly times up with the first episode.
Oh yeah,
that's like I love that episode. I like. Hannah's my favorite character. I love her so much. My favorite part is when she just tells Peter just what for. It's so great. It's literally like the greatest moment ever. But like I know it's like really dark with like the crack in the wall, but I just loved it. Like I love and I love really like the subtle, like there's a lot of like really subtle like hints where like obviously like they talk about the food, but there's one part like when everyone decides to stay over, when Miles wakes up, he's talking to Hannah and he's like, I had a dream that I hurt you. And she's like, oh, you'd never hurt me. And it's like, it's 1 second. And it's like, oh man, I didn't even notice it until like my third watch through.
Such good little foreshadowing. That's so good. Yeah, the crack in the wall thing, like that blows my mind a bit too. Cause I didn't like when they showed that, I was like, oh shit, like they've been showing that to us the whole time.
I knew it was something creepy. Yeah, didn't know what.
So well done. Yeah.
And Griswold said, who else knew Hannah was dead in episode 1? I told my sister, you refuse food once, you're not hungry. Twice you've already eaten. 3 times, you're dead. You're very dead. 3
times you're dead.
It was when she got up and left and her cup of tea was still completely full.
Yeah.
Which like, and it was kind of like played off as like, oh, Danny's bad at making tea, but I'm like, no, she didn't drink any of it. She didn't even try it.
You mentioned Peter, which made me think of Peter, and I have a lot of thoughts about him. A, he sucks as a person, obviously. He's terrible. But B, I kind of wished at the end we got like more of a fight from Peter. Like Viola can just say no to death, but Peter's gonna be like, fine, bye guys. I'll just go.
Well, I even thought he was a little ripped off of like when Danny got grabbed by the throat. And like she struggled up and down the stairs. Peter died like by the end of the
immediately.
I texted Megan that too. Because like he's like everybody else, including like Peter, almost Henry, like they all like are out immediately as soon as she grabs them. But like Danny makes it all the way upstairs.
Not just that, they're like outside. They go like past the church, back inside, up the stairs to the bedroom, stare at Flora for a bit, and then drop her.
I'm like, you would definitely at least be unconscious at this point, but she's able to like get up and keep doing stuff afterwards.
Well, the uncle died so fast that I thought he'd like broken his neck because he was just done. Like there wasn't a lot of suffocating. It was just kind of. So when he came back, I'm like, this is not.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's one of my favorite ghosts. She's like the main ghost, obviously, but the fact that I found it so utterly creepy, like the part where they lock her in the closet and you're like, what the heck is wrong with these kids?
Mm-hmm.
And then you find out later they lock her in the closet because if she gets in the path of this thing, you know, like she takes out anyone that gets in her path without even really realizing what she's doing. And I'm like, that is somehow the creepiest thing, that it's this creepy faceless ghost that just walks this path the same way every single night. Yeah, and if you get in its way, you're dead. Like, I don't know. There's just something extra creepy about that.
Yeah, I loved that scene where Miles and Flora realize that Danny is out of bed. And so they run to the kitchen after her and distract her while you see the woman walking behind her.
Yeah, that was really good.
So good.
Very cool.
So creepy. Yeah.
And I thought when I watched it the first go round, I was like, oh, they're going pretty wild with the hidden ghosts this time. Like, we get it, guys. You can do a hidden ghost. But in the second watch through, it was really interesting because every ghost was familiar. Like, they didn't do hidden ghosts that weren't in the storyline. Like in Hill House, there's just ghosts all over that house. But this one, every ghost was either like the plague doctor or the little boy. And they were just they were there a lot, but they were familiar the second time around, which I thought was really cool and interesting.
And who does Flora hush? It's
That's what I was wondering.
Perdita.
Oh, it's
Perdita. Yeah,
Perdita.
the faceless version of
I was wondering that at the end because I was like, it's not Viola and it's
No,
not
it's
Rebecca. Okay.
Perdita,
it's
because
Perdita.
She died of it.
snapped her neck in the
Yeah, that makes
attic.
sense.
Yeah. The part where she's like, here, little boy that doesn't have a face, I'll give you a face that is even creepier than your non.
And she made both things creepier. It was awful.
Why? Why, Flora? Why?
Also, Flora's like the bravest child ever because like no creepy ghost that is like trying to sing along. No, I'm not okay with this.
And just like,
I'm not okay with this faceless boy.
This is a
parents
solo.
being like, well, maybe he wants to be your friend. No, if my kid comes in and tells me there's a creepy faceless boy watching him, we're moving. We're not
Yeah, but kids are like that. They'll be like, there was a man under my bed talking to me. Can I have a glass of water? You know, like.
There was a kid the other day, like someone's kid came up and told them, "Oh, so Nana's living in the walls." So, like, I think Megan's gonna have to move several times over just because she's gonna believe her kid.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but Nana's living in the walls is the single most horrible thing I've ever heard.
sure. As long as
I don't know if Nana was dead or alive in that scenario. I assume dead because it made it more interesting. If alive Nana's in the walls, we have bigger problems.
That's a problem.
I did a comment from Missy K. I really love Oliver in Hill House as Luke, so I wanted to like Peter, and I definitely felt the same way. Like, he has such a charming face that you just like want to trust him, and I thought it was really fun.
They did that so deliberately, right? Like, that was a great, flipping the script on you because you go in thinking, oh, he's a genuinely nice guy, and then, nope.
I was so thrown off by his real accent that I had to like look it up. I was like, where is he from? Like, it wasn't like every time in like the first couple episodes when he'd talk, I'd be like.
So what did you guys think of Uncle Henry and his like creepy double? Like, obviously not an actual ghost, but
I thought that was the weakest part of the show.
Oh, really?
I guess no one is just gonna agree during this chat.
No, I did think I thought it was like good, but I agree that it was probably the weakest part of the show.
I liked the idea of it. I don't think it really necessarily fit in with the rest of the show because I'm like, is he the only one with a weird creepy devil. Like, is this a ghost or is it like a?
I liked it.
I don't know.
Felt like Hill House though. There were like Danny being followed around by Eddie. That wasn't actually Eddie, and him being followed around by his vices.
Yeah,
Like,
give a balance there, so it wasn't just like one random person imagining.
How do we know
things.
that wasn't Eddie? Like, how do we know that wasn't the ghost?
because the second she emotionally let go of him, he wasn't there anymore.
I guess so. I feel like it could still be a ghost that was like, okay, you're not.
There was no ghosts that weren't
That
Bly
were
Manor ghosts.
play.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I
he
like
was very creepy.
Yeah. I like the reasoning behind like the alter ego. I thought that was great. Like the explanation was great. I wish it just came a little bit sooner.
Yeah, I wouldn't have hated getting at least hints of it sooner.
Mhm.
That like Henry is also like Flora in that he's like, oh, you're a ghost? Cool.
Yeah, I really like the fiance, the whole thing about he just looks like headlamps on the ghost, and how creepy is that? And then you realize it's the light from the bust reflecting off his glasses, and I was like, oh my god, that's so creepy. So well done.
We had, and Griswold said, for a second, I thought Henry was dead too, since he never left his office. I was hoping that was the case. It would have been a good twist. That would have been a good twist. I would not have seen that coming.
Haunted his lawyer office. Still doing
I
it.
thought something similar. I was like, because I was like, yeah, it's kind of weird. And then when his alter ego showed up, I was like, what is going on with this guy?
Yeah, I would have liked a little more there. Because, like, even just the, it was him making the phone calls for kind of a nice reason, I guess. Of, like, there's nothing spooky there. It's just kind of this guy and his mistakes.
Yeah.
It's just
I think that
sad.
was a huge theme of like everyone's story. It was just, it's all just sad people living in their mistakes.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
See, I want to know with the ending if like when eventually when Danny's like spoilers obviously, but Danny's sort of dead, I guess, in the ending. And then when Jamie eventually dies, are they going to be together, or is she stuck in the Bly Manor property? Because she's stuck with this ghost of the Lady of the Lake. Right?
I do think they leave it a little ambiguous at the end, like how much, because there's like the hand on.
Yeah, that's like, how did she leave the lake?
But yeah, and
Is it really her, or is it really a ghost? You know,
yeah, or is it a double, like, you know, what follows around the guy from Hill House?
Yeah, the grief.
That like begs the question of like, why not see it when she wanted to, when she was looking into reflections and stuff.
And I do like those like Hill House times, because like, and then the actress who played older Jamie played the grief ghost in Hill House, that now she is the one getting the grief ghost.
Yeah.
Weird but true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was, I mean, that is left open-ended, and that's not surprising either, but that, I think that added another element to my, like, will they ever be together again? Like, I hate this.
And Griswold commented, I like that we thought the kids were just creepy kids, but they were actually trying to keep Danny safe. And like, I wish we'd gotten more from Miles, because to me, he was mostly just a creepy kid. And like, I know a lot of it was Peter, except all that stuff he did to get back to the house. And like, and I didn't see a lot of like, oh, here's some really nice Miles moments. It's like, no, he's either just like a kid or real creepy.
The stuff he did to get back to the house was Peter too, though.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, because Peter's already dead at that point.
Right, but he can't leave the grounds even if he's possessing him, though.
Interesting.
I know. I had the same thing like when I first watched.
Because they have that whole conversation where Peter's like, "It's what you had to do so you could get back to protect Flora and all this stuff." So it like sounded like Peter had kind of like told him
What
to
was all
do
the
it.
questions about the possession, though? Because he asked that priest about the possession, possessing the pigs and stuff.
I just assumed he wanted to know because he was being possessed by a ghost and that he did not allow into his body.
Do they say that? No, I think they can leave if they're being possessed, because Danny can leave.
They tried it, because Rebecca tried to run out.
I didn't realize
Peter possessing her.
Oh, I didn't know he was possessing her there.
Because like before, after Peter died, Miles was getting like part-time possessed. It wasn't until they did the like saying thing that Peter was supposed to like full-time take his body.
Yeah, because I remember Miles being like, essentially why he was asking about the possession to the preacher was like, are you responsible for what you're doing when you're possessed, or something? Like he was asking about that because, and to me it was very obvious he was doing these awful things while he was being possessed or under the influence of the horrible guy, you know. Because like those weren't normal like get kicked out of school things. They were like, you're a child psychopath.
Yeah. It's like there are other things you could do to get kicked out.
Not
I always, in my head, it was like, now that I'm thinking about it, because at first I also thought it was Peter, but you're right, that's like he couldn't get off the ground.
He couldn't leave.
I feel like it must have just been him telling Miles to do those things, like do whatever you have to do.
Or Flora was writing letters.
I think it was like Flora's come home and then Miles just did whatever he had to do.
Yeah,
He kept escalating it. Like he tried to just like fall out of a tree and call it a day, but
right. Because like they talked about like the conversation that he had with Peter, who is like, you just have to find the right key and you can do whatever. And so like I just assumed that like, yeah, he was like, okay, well, I have to get home to my sister, so I'm just gonna do whatever I have to. And like he didn't start with like hurting people or animals. Like he was like, oh, I'll just hurt myself, which still got great, but you know, but like they were like so lenient with him because of what happened to his parents and what happened to Rebecca. They were like willing to let a lot of stuff slide.
Yeah. And when he's up in the tree, he does say, I'm trying to find the right key right before he like falls out of it.
so he learned from creepy ghost Peter, but wasn't creepy ghost Peter.
Right.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about Rebecca. We haven't talked about her a ton. What did you guys think of Rebecca?
I was very frustrated by her plot line. Like I felt like she seemed smarter.
Yeah, I didn't understand why she was going.
Why she fell for a very obviously creepy, controlling, gross person.
Yeah, she definitely didn't feel like a well-rounded character of her own a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I will say, like, whoever wrote like the scenes with Rebecca and Peter has definitely been in an abusive relationship before.
Yeah.
Because there are a couple things I was like, wow, that is way too accurate.
Yeah.
Like, I specifically think about like the Owen thing with the cake batter.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, I'm just gonna leave. Like, you're making me do this. And it was just like, I was like, oh, that's way too like accurate of how abusers act for someone.
Well,
to
the way
not
he
have
came back and acted like everything was fine. Like, sorry, I like overreacted about that. It's just because I'm so in love with you, you know.
Yeah. I almost wish we got to see a little more escalation to that point, because in watching it both times, he reacts that way, and I was like, Rebecca, you need to get out of this.
They've just barely gotten together when he acts like
that. It was literally the next day. Like it was literally the day after they had gotten together.
Yeah.
And I definitely believe it could have gotten to that point, but I wish it had taken a little longer to get to that point.
Yeah, it was 24 hours.
And it also felt like it hadn't been long enough when she decides to like die for him, you know, like neither of those things felt like they had been
really ever, right? He possesses her.
Yeah, she doesn't.
Like
he never tells her. He never tells her that's what he's gonna do.
Okay. See, I guess I just did not understand what was going on in all of that episode, like when he was possessing her and when he wasn't. I was very confused about all of the like being tucked away and like he was talking about blips. Like I did not understand what they were talking about half the time, and I was like so confused by it.
Tucked away is basically just a nice word for possessed.
Yeah.
It's like where you go in your memories when you're like not seeing what's
happening. Yeah, and I was very confused about it.
I was a little confused about some of Hannah's it felt like she was tucked away when she kept reliving the memory talking to Owen, but she wasn't.
She wasn't possessed, but she was like avoiding the
reality. Losing her like grip on like the house because it like happens to every ghost. Like they show that it happens to every ghost, and so for her, like I just assumed that when that was happening to her, she was like disappeared from the house, and so like maybe they thought she was in her room or doing something else, but. I also realized there's a couple times they do flashbacks for other characters, and it makes me wonder if they're doing it for like the audience's benefit or that's what's currently happening to the character. Especially with Flora.
Yeah,
I noticed that
Flora definitely.
Yeah. That's true with Peter, because remember his like flashback is his mother, and he keeps she keeps showing up at the door, and he's like why am I reliving this moment over and over, essentially?
And that's what I wish we'd gotten more for Rebecca, because like Peter was terrible, and we got a bit about why he's terrible, whereas Rebecca was just kind of but we didn't get any justification for why she was on board with
it. Also, she was a terrible governess. Like, let's be real.
Yeah, that's what made me so mad was because she like you guys said, she had such a short little lead up to her romance and him being completely off his rocker. And even before he was off his rocker, he was like, let's go into this forbidden area and try on like fur and jewels or whatever. And it's like, you're letting him risk your job. And you just met the dude.
Yeah.
And wasn't she studying to be a lawyer or something?
Yes, which is like set up that like she's not just there to be a governess. Like she's there to like get her career in law.
Goals. Yeah. So what's she doing with this schmuck? Like trying to put her coats on, you know? Like it wasn't really realistic to me.
There wasn't like enough of a lead up of him like charming her. Like I could have believed it if he'd like really charmed her for a while to the point where she like went along with things.
Yeah,
because that's what happens when you're in an abusive relationship, you know.
Well, and like that's what sociopaths do is they like attract you by being interesting and charming and like hook you, and then by the time you figure out they're a sociopath, it's too late. So if they had showed that, if they had showed that unraveling. And then her following for him and it being too late, be like, oh shit, I'm in love with him, but he's.
I think another way I would have liked to play it, just because she was supposed to be super smart and all of that, and like having her be kind of bored and like she doesn't want to be an au pair, so like she's in this big empty house by herself, and then here's this guy who wants to do other things and like is kind of challenging her mind to get her to kind of like take some chances, and nobody cares if she goes in the room because it's a big empty house and nothing's happening. So like kind of that monotony might drive her to do it, But
yeah, it was definitely not like he's not challenging her intellect. He's just like, let's make out in this fur, right? Like that would have been more interesting if she was like found him intellectually stimulating in a boring job. That would have been very different.
Yeah. I hate it like when she talks about like the muddy footprints and she's like, yeah, they snuck out twice this month. And I'm like, girl, did you talk to them? Like even if you legitimately thought that these two small children were going out to the lake in the middle of the night and tracking mud back in, that is a larger conversation. And she just like brushes it off, like, oh, they're sneaking out. Like,
to the lake of all places. That's
right. That's so dangerous.
I'm like, there's only ever one set of footprints, so it would seem like one of these children is going by themselves to the water.
Do they have big
worse?
So much worse.
Yeah, I would have loved to have delved more into Rebecca's like ambition as well as Peter's to an extent. I just felt like there was a lot more room to delve into both of. Like if we're gonna take this much time to get through this story,
well, and like Rebecca's ambition, like we're just told, like, and that's an issue I have in some things in the stories. I feel like there was some telling. And like it's just Peter being like, "This is why you're here. This is your ambition," and like, you know,
that's your ambition for you. Yeah, and then she really, you're right. You never see that in any way. And then when she's, you know, off falling in love with him, she throws that all away, basically. Like, what? That was not your ambition, I guess. Like,
I do love. She's such a good actress. The part where. Peter pulls away and they like fight afterwards because she's like, you said that we were going to be together and then it turns out I was dying and you left and that wasn't cool. Like that is a very heartbreaking scene.
Yeah,
and it was so well done.
Yeah, and it
also,
really
what a jerk move to just leave her as she's dying
to drown.
There, and then like all of a sudden he's like, peace out, you're gonna spend these last 30 seconds drowning by yourself.
And then she, because she knows how terrible it is, so she tells Flora, "I'll be there with you," and it's like,
yeah,
I'll do it for you, for you, yeah.
So Rebecca had to die twice.
Well, not really, because Flora didn't, but she was willing to. She was willing. Yeah, which is like such a huge moment. It would have been good to see her like. You know, that's her character climax where she's like willing to sacrifice herself a second time, you know, like
for a job she didn't love.
Yeah. If they make another series, like I'd like to see them bring her back and give her like a bigger role where she gets to do more.
Yeah, I loved her. I also, though, if they do a third series and Victoria Pedretti is in it, she's gonna be dead. Go, just go.
I
There's
Actually,
no.
I was like, can they please give Victoria Pedretti like a different a different character? Like I feel like she just like plays kind of very similar, like very traumatized and dies. Kind of
I did
character.
hope that their
Uncle came.
personalities were different.
Yeah. As it went at the beginning, I was like, she feels very much like Nell, but then like she did have kind of her own personality later, so that's good.
I keep forgetting what the uncle's name is in this one, but
Henry.
at the end, until he got brought back, I'm like, so this guy just plays the guy who dies in the final episode. That is his role here, but he was fine this time.
Can we please talk about Jamie, the love of my life?
Yes.
Yes, thank
Love
you.
her. There was one point where watching it, like after I knew that like Hannah was dead, that I was like, the only person I care about is Jamie at this point.
I like Owen.
Yeah, I did love
too.
but I knew Owen was gonna be fine. I was like, he's already lost Hannah, like Owen's gonna be fine. I'm not worried about him.
Mom.
Yeah. He's not fine, but he's gonna be fine.
And then like, Jamie answering the phone when his mom had died, and it was just awful.
That was so bad.
Like the moment Jamie walked on screen, I was like, "Oh, she gay." This needs to happen. Kiss.
I thought it was more fun when she figured out that Danny was also gay, and she's like, "Oh, did
Like,
not
new.
okay."
Because I went into this without knowing there was a sapphic element to it. So of course, like I am always like I'm like that meme that's like pushing the two people together and like kiss. And so I do that with every show. And I was like, Danny and the gardener. And then I was like, wait, it's real? Like this is happening. Very emotional.
Yeah, she was great. And I thought it was really interesting in the rewatch how like Danny's whole thing with was it moonflowers? Is that what they were called?
Oh yeah.
With the moonflowers was like, it's a metaphor for Danny. Like,
This is very
a sad metaphor, but a good one nonetheless. And I liked her. I don't know. A lot of times it's easy for love interests to be like, oh, well, since this is the good love interest, they're just going to be cute and perfect. And she had like her own problems and quirks and stuff too. Like she felt really fleshed out.
I thought it made I was really afraid that they were going to do she's pulling away and this isn't going to work and blah, blah, blah. But like, I'm glad they put some kind of issues into it because of her past and stuff. And both of them had baggage essentially, so it made it deeper when they got through it.
Way to comment from N. Groswald. One thing that confused me, did the lady in the lake lie dormant for a period? Why didn't she kill the parents and drag one of them to the lake? She always walked to the master bedroom. I think she was dormant.
Mm-hmm.
Because
She only came out every couple of weeks.
She sleeps, she wakes, she walks. So like I think she has like a sleeping period where she is dormant for a while. But it must be like speeding up because it seems like she's starting to come more and more often throughout the series. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was also like a summer home too, so the parents weren't like always there.
But if they were
And I wonder
there when she was up, like they would see her, yes? If she's just like even if she doesn't take them because they're not a child in her bed. If I woke up and she was standing there, I would remember this moment.
They must never wake up and see her, I guess. I don't know.
I just assumed when I was watching, because this was like the forbidden wing or whatever, like the part you didn't go to. So I assumed they had a different master bedroom.
No, it was forbidden
No, it was
because
theirs.
it was their wing.
Theirs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, then that is confusing because they definitely should have noticed something going on.
I think it was though. I think the narrator, which I do want to talk about as well, the narrator says like sometimes there would be long stretches where she.
And that explains. I felt like there should have been more dead people at that house. Like Hill House had so many dead people without having like an active like I'm gonna kill you ghost. And then the Lady of the Lake is very aggressively killing people.
She just walked through and didn't kill anyone when there were a lot of people in, because she didn't kill anyone when it was the like plague ward or whatever it was at the time.
It's only if you get directly in her path, like if she's gonna walk into you. I guess if like Peter was standing like a foot like to the left, he would probably still be alive.
Yeah. But like literally he was like right there.
Yeah. Then you get into like so can everybody just see her? Because I would think maybe not when the plague thing's happening, but mostly if you see this stranger walking through your house, you will approach the stranger, yes?
Yeah. One would think.
So,
I was confused about like who could see ghosts and when they could see them. Like that was part of what confused me about it. Like that's why I got confused about Hannah, because like I thought she was dead, but it was like literally everyone is seeing her and interacting with her, and that threw me off because I thought there would at least be somebody who like didn't interact with her because they couldn't see her or something, you know? And I was like, no, she's just visible. She can pick stuff up. She can like, there's like no limits to what she can do.
Like everyone can see any ghost in Bly.
Yeah.
They're never hidden really from people.
Mm-hmm.
But there is that one scene where Flora's in the bath and she like looks like she's talking to probably Rebecca, and there's no one there.
Yeah.
So like you're right, that is the rules of the ghosts are kind of confusing.
Yeah, there are times where people don't see them and times when they do.
Because there's when Peter is talking to Rebecca when he's dead and she's not, he's like, it's taken me weeks to figure out how to make you able to see me.
Oh yeah, right. I remember that now.
I think with Hannah, it's just because she didn't know she was dead, so her belief was so like her belief that she was alive was so strong. Yeah. That's what was keeping her like present.
The gravity of it. Like Viola.
Yeah, can we get into my least favorite thing about this series, which was the narration?
Viola's accent was so bad.
I like figured it was Jamie from pretty early on, but I was like,
only 2 Scottish women.
I was like, so you lived in the U.S. for a while, so your Scottish accent turned into a British one with an occasional Scottish like word every once in a while.
I think she was legitimately trying to sound Scottish all the time.
But most of the time, it just came out like vaguely British. Yeah, but also I just thought narration is such a difficult like device to use. And a lot of the time it was not used well. A lot of the time it just turned into the narrator like telling you things that you didn't need to be told, you know?
I loved the recap I watched tonight, because I like literally am not going to remember anything if I don't. Was like, oh yeah, the night before the wedding, she sits down to tell a 9-hour ghost story. Cool.
We had Missy Kate mentioned earlier, did anyone read The Turn of the Screw? And I've read most of it. And that is how The Turn of the Screw opens. It's like we're at a party and someone sits down to tell a 9-hour ghost story. Like we're in the parlor.
I mean, that's the narration
from The Turn of the Screw, yeah.
Somebody said the dollhouse thing was from The Turn of the Screw. Yes, I haven't yet. So.
Nice.
At the spoilers for Turn of the Screw, if you don't want to be spoiled on how but at the end of the Turn of the Screw, I'm pretty sure Miles dies. And
yeah, I was reading that.
I'm reading The Turn of the Key right now by Ruth Ware, which is a retelling of The Turn of the Screw that came out a couple of years ago. And it's really good. And it opens with the nanny being like, hey, I'm writing to you from jail and I didn't kill that kid. And here's my story. And it's really good so far. That was off topic, but big recommend for The Turn of the Key.
But yeah, I just distinctly remember, and like there were times where the narration wasn't a problem, but I remember like in the last episode, I think it was like when everything big was going down or something. And the narrator, like everything happened and I felt like it was pretty clear what was going on. And then the narrator started like telling the audience like what happened and like laying it all out. And I was like, this is not
necessary. Tammy doesn't know what she's doing, but she's making a promise. And it's like, I can tell. I also don't know what she's doing, but I know she's making a promise.
Yeah.
See, I don't know. The only thing that bugged me about the narration, like I mostly didn't notice it, but it was like at the end when it's clear that these are the people who tell the story about Miss Florence. So like, who do you think Danny is to you? Like, how dense do you have to be not to realize that this story is at least somehow related to you? Like, did you forget
so much of it?
Yeah, like
all she recognizes is that Flora is her middle name. She doesn't recognize like her dad or her brother's name. She doesn't remember the name of the house she lived in anymore, I guess.
I don't know. Remembers Jamie enough for her to be there.
Jamie changed the names, but like, so you had a cook and a gardener who you are still close enough with that you invited to your wedding, and nothing else rings a bell.
They talk about that though. They do.
I know, but it's still like,
yeah, it doesn't make it better, but they do.
It just doesn't. I get that she's forgotten so much of it. But the fact that Jamie tells this whole story and it doesn't make, other than the middle name or the name being her middle name, it doesn't make her go like, wait a second.
Yeah.
You know,
I lived in that house.
Yeah. And like, I don't remember anything of my childhood.
And when they talk about it, they say the kids only remember the shape of it. And then in this story, Jamie very much lays out the shape of it.
Yeah.
I think it's probably one of those things where, like, you know, like with Hill House, you think, oh, maybe that kind of triggers some memories, but that's super weird and that doesn't happen in real life. So
Well, the fact alone that you had a nanny that drowned in the lake in front of your house,
And you
like,
don't
I forgot
remember?
that.
that you would remember that no matter what age you were. Like,
Especially if
that was part of
the
the
body.
supernatural explanation was that they don't, and it was just the one summer. They remember they spent summers there, but they don't remember the traumatic one.
Well, even like speaking of nannies drowning in front of your lake, they were still friends with Danny. What do they think happened to her? She also drowned in your lake.
two nannies drowned.
Yeah.
You started to get suspicious.
But none of this rings a bell.
And like, you must know that Jamie is a widow. So like,
Well, because like Flora has the whole conversation about like, I'm scared that he'll die before me. Like, how do you handle that? Yeah.
Imagine like you put the third notice out for another nanny. It's like, oh, the past two drowned in the lake. Oh.
just don't go near it. You'll probably be
Don't
fine.
go near the lake. It's fine.
And Griswold said, "What? I love movies and TV shows with narrators. It's not done enough." Fight.
Like I said, there were times where I thought it was fine, or even like I liked the repetition in episode 8 of like she like sleeps, she wakes, she walks. Like I thought that was like cool, but I just felt like a lot of the time there were just times in it where there was too much narration and it was like telling too much, where the show could have just like spoke for itself without a narrator. So.
Yeah, let me check the notes. Des made these great notes for today because we are co-hosting tonight. Owen's puns were incredible.
A badder place.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
She's a battered woman.
That was a really funny joke.
I loved Owen. He was a pure soul.
Yes.
Yes.
He
He deserved better out of life.
Yes.
He did.
And I feel like in all of these things, so the friends maybe take a look when they went back to visit him at his new little bakery restaurant, whatever it is he's doing. It's like, I want more in these series of like, and now we acknowledge that we all know ghosts exist. Let's talk it out. Like, I just want a little bit of it. I just feel like as a viewer, it would be so cathartic to be like, you see it too, right? Like, I just want a little bit, like, instead of just the ominous, yes, but we don't speak of these things. It's like,
Yeah.
Because after Danny takes the Lady of the Lake into her, she has 2 different colored eyes. Like, she has the walking proof that like there's something going on because she used to have 2 same colored eyes.
Yeah. I really
yeah, even like I would have, and I'm sure Jamie believed her, but I wanted a bit of like, I almost wondered like, did Jamie think this is all in your head? And like, so there just wasn't enough of, and then we saved Flora from a ghost.
Yeah.
I don't think she thought it was in her head.
No, but like
No.
I would have felt like there would have been some level of like, is this trauma? Like, what are we talking about here? Because Jamie never fully said. Like,
Yeah.
I guess she kind of did, but not.
They did a little bit with the like, I can feel her in there and blah blah blah. Like they admitted there was something going on with her when the scene where she was in the bath or whatever, and she's worried because she could feel her. She saw her, and so she was telling her about that.
Yeah.
It's not like straight up like, hey, look, I have a ghost problem, but it's
Yeah.
I
It's like I wondered for a while of like, did she take all the ghosts? Because like everybody went free once this happened with the Lady in the Lake.
Because the Lady of the Lake was gone.
Yeah.
He was the one keeping death away.
I think I kept expecting, because it resolves within the first 15 minutes of the last episode, and then the rest of the episode is like what happens after the big ghost showdown. And so yeah, I thought there would be a lot more let's discuss this. You have a ghost inside of you. Maybe we'll do at least one thing to try and get that ghost out of you.
Literally anything. Although it's funny because now that I say that, like I'm going to refute my own point because the Lady of the Lake was what was keeping all of the ghosts there because Death wasn't going to come back. But why is it different now that she's in Danny? Was it because she left the grounds? Is that why? Like the Lady of the Lake was technically not in the lake anymore. So
I think like all of her gravity, like they call it, went into Danny.
Right. So then Danny left and Death was able to like visit the manor again and take all the ghosts with him. Which is, by the way, one of the most genius, like almost a mythology of a place. Like Death doesn't come here because of this one woman that refused to die. Like
and that's just I would have loved to see more of a battle because I feel like Peter was also doing a lot to not die. To then suddenly be like, fine. I would have loved to see that comparison of the two. Like Viola, who is just like, I'm literally not going to die. You will never take me from this place. And it's because it's mine. And like, I'm looking for my daughter. And then Peter, who was doing it for this very different and more malicious reason, like, but still the same like end desire of, I don't want to be dead.
Well, even on a lesser scale, I wanted to see more fight from Flora. Like, I've tried to take a much smaller child, carrying them to a place they don't want to be, and it's difficult. Or she's just like,
help.
She put way more of a fight up when Danny was trying to take her from.
Yeah, she did.
And why
She
didn't
was like
Marcus
screaming.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, guess I'm gonna drown now. Help me.
Yeah. Just gonna hang with my faceless ghost friend forever now.
No, thank you.
So I don't know. Yeah, there were a lot of things. I did still overall enjoy it. Like I don't want it to feel like, oh, here's a list of everything I hated. So I hated it. It was very enjoyable.
There's something really creepy about the faceless ghost thing. That like especially gets me. Anything that's like faceless, I'm like, that's next level creepy.
There was nothing in this show that I thought was more scary than things that happened in Hill House, except for the intro sequence where everyone is losing their faces in the bushes. That is scarier than the Hill House intro sequence.
The first episode really freaked me out, and I was like, this is going to be scarier than Hill House for me because of the reflections in the mirrors, and like that just really freaks me out. I don't like that. And like I noticed like the shadows in the background multiple times and stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're going hard. But then I felt like it really backed off the scariness as it went on.
It was definitely more of a love story than a haunting story, I think.
Yeah. And I think something that is interesting too is that like Bly Manor was a haunted house, but Bly Manor in the show and in The Turn of the Screw, it's not a scary house. Like the house is supposed to be happy and beautiful and bright, and then it also has this other side to it. And so I thought they did a really good job of it being like the house isn't creepy, but things in it are.
In Hill House, it felt like the actual house, and in this one, it didn't.
Yeah. We had a question from N. Griswold. So if there's a third season, what book/ghost story do you think they should adapt next?
I desperately want a third season. I do not know enough about horror to even guess, but
I'm with Kelly.
I don't know enough classic ghost stories.
Right.
Yeah, I know all of Shirley Jackson. So
I like Misty Kate said Rebecca with The Haunting of Manderley would be interesting, which I know what that is because I watched the movie Rebecca that just came out, and that would be interesting.
But they rarely even stay to the actual book. It's like they take
it's totally different. Yeah. Oh, Misty Kate said Bag of Bones would be fun. It's not like a classic, but that was like the first book that gave me a nightmare.
I wonder if they would do something that wasn't a classic. Like they've stuck to the classics.
I think they'll probably do whatever that director wants them to do.
He's so good. Well, we've been going for almost an hour. And that seems like a good last question. Does anyone have any last minute feelings, things they want to say?
I feel like we had some pretty deep discussion on this, way more than usual for kind of chat.
There's a lot to unpack. We pre-recorded a group chat talking about the Haunting of Hill House and really breaking that down, and that's going to go up on my next video day, which is the week after next, I believe. So keep an eye out for that, because we had a lot of fun doing that one as well. And yeah, do we have a chat topic for next week?
We do. We picked all our February things. I just don't remember
Yes.
what it is.
Also, this Thursday,
Yes.
we are doing our first ever read-in. So it's going to be like a write-in, except for we're all just going to hang out and read books. So
Yes, I'm grabbing the link to that
yeah,
right now.
yes,
I already made the event.
yes. So bring, your favorite warm beverage, something
And
to
then-
read. It can be a book. It can be a textbook. It can be fan fiction. Don't care.
All right.
Something to
All
read.
of the above.
Fan fiction. I'll be there.
Read some fan fiction.
Next Sunday is our tension workshop.
Ah, yes.
That's me. I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And again, I've just put the link to our read-in. One last plug, I guess. We started watching all of this together, and I made a website called Spook Notes that helps people who don't like spooky things get through spooky stories. Basically, it just tells you when there's going to be jump scares and when something is going to be scary but not lead to a jump scare. So if that sounds like your thing, check it out.
It is fantastic. It's so funny. It makes it so much easier to just like relax and enjoy the story of like I've used this for Hill House, for Bly Manor. Every episode I'm right there with Megan as I'm watching the thing. But it makes it so much more enjoyable for me of like, it's not too spoilery and I know what's coming or the exact phrase before something's going to jump out at me, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, so I made it at first and had a lot of fun making it so that Kelly could watch Hill House without getting spoiled by synopses, and had a bunch of people ask me for the link to it. So I figured I'd tell you guys too. So yeah, that exists. It's spooknotes.com. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you on Thursday for our read-in. Again, I put the link to that in the discussion section. And if you're watching this after the fact, I will put it in the description box as well. Please like and subscribe if you like us and want to be subscribed to our content. And, videos Tuesday, Thursday, tension workshop next week. Bye.